Hello, everyone, and welcome to this month's StepZen community update. We've got tons of new features that we'd like to show to you. And the biggest one is the announcement of subscriptions. If you're not familiar with subscriptions is one of three operation types we have in GraphQL. Subscriptions are used for real-time, live, or streaming data, where queries are mostly for read-only data and mutations are to mutate data. Subscriptions are whenever you're building something that includes real-time data. Maybe it's a chat application, maybe it's a stock tracker, or maybe it's a crypto checker, as we'll be seeing in this community update. So let me share my screen and head over to the announcement blog. And as always, if you have any questions during this community update, make sure to ask them in the comments. That way I will be able to help you address them. So on the StepZen blog, you can find this subscription announcement that shows you can use subscriptions across any backend, not just databases. So where most GraphQL implementations only allow you to use subscriptions on databases, we also allow you to use subscriptions on REST backends, other GraphQL backends, or maybe even SOAP backends, or whatever kind of backends you can imagine. And this is now all available on StepZen's cloud. So previously, we already released subscriptions for the Docker cloud, Docker instance, but now we also have it on our managed cloud. If you scroll down here a bit, you can see the highlight of how it would work. So you would still create your GraphQL schema. It will include a query, and this query, for example, is getting data from a REST endpoint. With StepZen and subscriptions, you can create a new type called subscription. You give it a name, you give it a response type, and then you would use AppMaterializer to let StepZen know that this information for the subscription is coming from a query, meaning that you're subscribing to a query where the query would be your data source. I actually created, or not I created, but we have created an example, which I've opened here in VS Code. It consists of two things. It has a directory with a GraphQL file, which is right here. And in here you can see a type called Binance. You can find a query that is using the Binance REST API to get the latest information about the conversion rates between crypto. And then we have a subscription that is subscribed to this query that we just created. So whenever there's an update for information on this query, it will send you the latest information. So behind the scenes, we'll be making sure that we check for updates on the REST API endpoint. So if I would be starting this GraphQL schema, I can actually deploy it to the cloud. And run StepZen deploy. This will deploy my GraphQL file to the cloud, making it available to query for me from the client. So I have this endpoint now. If I would go to the second directory, which is this client directory, there's a file called client.js. And in here you can find that we are using this query to get information from Binance using the symbol ETH-BTC, meaning that it's the conversion rate from Ethereum to Bitcoin. And then the response field should be symbol and the last available price. Down here, you can see we're using create client from GraphQL WS, meaning that we're using the GraphQL WebSocket client in order to get subscription data as soon as there's new data available. And then to run this, I need to run node client.js, which will run the JavaScript function that is in this file. And as you can see, it's getting us data from this timestamp. So subscriptions will always give you a timestamp, so you would know when the data was latest refreshed. With our query, with Binance, the symbol, Ethereum BTC, and also the last price. So this is actually the last price compared to the previous price. So it will be saying 0 now as the price hasn't been changed. So as soon as the price changes, you will receive a new update in this terminal because we are subscribed to updates for this subscription. And you never know how long it will take until new data is being updated. So we're just going to leave it at this for right now. Another announcement we made is that we started to work together with SingleStore. So if you don't know SingleStore is, as it says here, a distributed SQL database, which is very well for transactions and analytics. And just as StepZen, they have a very good cloud operation, meaning that when using SingleStore and StepZen together, you have two services that run in the cloud, meaning that you don't need to run any infrastructure by yourself. And as you can read here, it says how to create a small database in SingleStore and then use that same database to get the information using GraphQL with StepZen. So if you would set up a SingleStore database that has an ID, text, and this setup, so this is a category probably, or the time it takes to load. You can also create a StepZen GraphQL schema that's using MySQL to get the information out of your SingleStore database. Meaning that even though SingleStore doesn't have a GraphQL API themselves, you can use StepZen to create a GraphQL API based on your data in SingleStore. And then here you can also find some example queries in case you want to try this out yourself. And then, most of all, it also shows you how to stitch data from SingleStore together using App Materializer, because maybe you have data in one SingleStore table that you want to merge together with data in another SingleStore table. And instead of having to write any SQL yourself, you can use StepZen and GraphQL to do it for you declaratively. And there will be more announcements using SingleStore and StepZen together later on, as we also will be creating more examples showing you how to use these two technologies side by side. Which brings me to another point for this community update. It is our examples repo. And in this example repo, you can find examples of using StepZen together with cool technologies on the front end, for example, cool backend technologies, and also different data sources. So during the Hacktoberfest of this year, we also had a challenge where people could create their own integrations and merge them in the repo. And it was a great success as we've got many people creating integrations for StepZen and merging them back into this repo. For example, you can find a Python example. There are examples of using StepZen together with Remix, which is down right here. A Remix, if you haven't heard about it, it's a cool it's a couple years old. It's a React front-end framework recently acquired by Shopify. So there's a big future for Remix. And if you start building new React applications, I would definitely recommend you to have a look at Remix to use it for your next React project. And if you'd like to try Remix together with StepZen, there is a cool example built by our community right here in this repo. There's also support for different databases, different REST APIs, other front-end frameworks such as SvelteKit, Next.js. So there's tons of examples in here. So if you're new to StepZen, if you'd like to build a new project and like to start by looking at the code, I would really advise you to go into the examples repo and find all the examples we have right here. So with this, I also like to take some time to answer some of your questions. And if there aren't any questions, that's completely fine. I would really advise you to go to our Discord channel. And in our Discord channel, you can find ways to ask questions to our team, to our community. So if you have any pressing StepZen questions, make sure to head over to Discord and ask any question you have around our technologies right there. We're setting up a new community forum right inside Discord, where it also will be possible for you to find questions that other people asked earlier on. That way you don't have to ask the question yourself. Instead, you can just go to the community forum and find the questions of previous people. Which also means that it might be time to be going back to our examples repo and also back to the code we had running with our subscription. Because in the beginning of this community update, we set up a subscription to look for changes in the Ethereum to Bitcoin price from Binance, and we subscribed to any updates. And as I told you then, you will only see a new query result popping up whenever there is an update. And as there aren't any updates every second, or there could be updates any second, usually there aren't, we are seeing any updates now a few minutes later. And as you can see, it took like 4 minutes for the first update to arrive, and the last price has changed by a small amount. And then you can see different updates coming on. So maybe every 10 seconds there was another update. So this is how easy it is to set up subscriptions for any data source using StepZen. And as I showed you before, the only thing you need to do is write your queries and then create a connection type in the subscription to watch for updates in this query. So this was the last StepZen community update of 2022. And I really hope to see you again in 2023 when we have lots of new features that we will be announcing in these new community updates. And also we'll be introducing more of our community members in the upcoming community updates. We'll be showing the products they're building and the questions they ask on our Discord forum. So with this, I'd like to end, and I hope to see you again in next year.